Craig, last month CSIS released a report called Capacity and Resolve that examines how countries around the world view American power. Why did you focus on the perception of power and not power itself?
Power is so hard to quantify in today's world. What matters today? Is it GNP, defense spending, population size, or is it how networked you are as a country? So we wanted to start with the idea that perceptions matter.
Did anything surprise you? Is there any area of the globe where American power is shakier or thinner than expected?
Generally, the chatter today is that U.S. power is in decline. I think what's interesting is that what we found is that the expectations for U.S. power in Asia and the Gulf in particular are still quite high, that there's lots of fears about the intentions of China and Iran. And so there's lots of expectations for the United States going forward. In fact, the greater fear is about our intentions rather than our capacity.
Has our power been declining over a period of years, or has it declined recently?
Well, from this study, we actually argued that U.S. power is not in decline. I think that because of the Iraq wars, because of the fiscal crisis that we're in, there's a sense that certainly is here in Washington that somehow that China is rising and that the United States is on the sort of bad end of that stick. But what we've shown is that there's actually very high expectations for the United States going forward.
Can you tell us a little bit about the report's methodology? What kind of data did you use to measure the perceptions of U.S. power? And what particular states did you examine, and how did you come about choosing them?
Sure. This isn't a polling effort. Our scholars looked at polling, but 10 of our scholars went out and did assessments of how other countries are perceiving the United States, mainly through focus interviews with a wide variety of stakeholders. So we looked in Asia, we looked at China, Japan, Korea, Indonesia, and India. In the Gulf, we looked at the Arab Gulf states, Iran, and Israel. And in Eurasia, we looked at Germany, Russia, and Turkey.
And how did you come about choosing these states? Was it the scholars picked the ones they thought were the hottest and most important?
We tried to pick states where there's the greatest degree of dynamism, where their views of the United States could be changing, states that mattered to U.S. interests going forward, and we tried to group them in regions so we could see some kind of regional effect that could be taking place.
This report was done to help policymakers understand the perception of American power worldwide. How do you think the policymakers will actually use the report?
That's a good question. There's two things everyone in Washington is trying to solve these days, trying to figure out. One is what's their budget going to be going forward? Two, how is that budget going to be able to meet the challenges they're going to face over the next 10 years? I think this report provides a framework for thinking about the strategic environment over the next 10 years and what it might mean if we're operating in a period where we're fiscally constrained. We have to find a way to do less strategically, but not look like we're managing decline.
Craig, final question. The report argues that American resolve and competency are of greater long-term concern than U.S. capacity. Do you see that sentiment playing out in the current debt ceiling debate? Is the U.S. tiring under the burden of the world's expectations, or are we just suffering from our own perhaps grandiose expectations?
I think the debt ceiling debate has created an air of pessimism around Washington, and I think it's signaled at a critical time that we can't come together and do big things as a nation. So in that context, I think it sends a dangerous signal abroad.
Craig, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.